Okay, so number 3, snowy and cold, February blew in on a storm. So first thing we do, circle the punctuation. This is a simpler sentence, but we go through the same procedures. How many pieces are there? Well, there's 1, 2. Okay? All right, which one is the base clause? Give it the it could be true that test. It could be true that snowy and cold. Is that a base clause? Nope, does not make sense. It is not complete. Try the next one. It could be true that February blew in on a storm. Is that the base clause? Yes, that sounds complete. Who or what is the sentence all about? Well, the subject and the verb are within the base clause, so who or what is this all about? Who or what did something? It's all about February. So what is the subject? February. Okay, and then we got to find the predicate, the did what or what about it part. What about February? It blew in on a storm. And within that predicate is the verb. What's the action word? It blew. Okay. So we have identified the base clause. Let's look at number 4. This one is a little trickier, so listen carefully, okay? All right, first of all, read the whole thing. Always start with reading the whole thing. Brian Moss from Meridian, a small town in Idaho, is the luckiest man in the country, having won the lottery 6 times. And that's true. I read that online and made a sentence about it. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Circle the punctuation. We got a comma after Moss, a comma after Meridian, a comma after Idaho, a comma after country, and an exclamation mark. So how many pieces are in this sentence? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's a complicated sentence, but there's still just one base clause, so let's go through it. Who or what is this sentence all about? Well, it's about Brian Moss. All right, so that's our subject, Brian Moss. Okay, now we know the subject is within the base clause, so we're going to highlight that. Now, here's the new part. The verb is cut apart, separated from the subject. So we're going to go through the procedure a little differently. What is the did what or what about it part? What about Brian Moss shows what he did, or what about him? Okay, Brian Moss from Meridian. That doesn't sound complete. Brian Moss, a small town in Idaho. Does that sound right? Does that sound complete? No? Brian Moss is the luckiest man in the country. Ah, now that sounds complete. And look at this little word right there. What do we know about is? Is a verb. Okay? So, is our verb. Our predicate is the luckiest man in the country. Now, check it out. Does it pass the it could be true that test? It could be true that Brian Moss, and then this little slash mark shows that we cut something out of the sentence, is the luckiest man in the country. Yep, that's complete. That's the base clause. Let's just be sure. It could be true that from Meridian. Nope, that does not sound complete. It could be true that a small town in Idaho. Nope, that does not sound complete. It could be true that having won the lottery 6 times. Does that sound complete? No. So our base clause is Brian Moss is the luckiest man in the country. Our subject is Brian Moss. Our verb is. That little state of being verb that does not show action, but it's a verb. Is, are, was, were, have, has, had, be, being, been, could, would, should, may, might, can, can't, will, won't, are all verbs that do not show action. State of being. Okay, so that one's a little trickier because the base clause is sliced. It's chopped. All right, let's try number 5. Mary, an enthusiastic baker, was learning to make a new pie, banana and coconut cream. Okay, so we're not going to vary our questions too much. We're going to start with circling the punctuation. Okay, how many pieces are in this sentence? 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. All right, so now we have to find the base clause. Who or what is this sentence all about? Well, it's all about Mary, isn't it? So our subject is Mary. Okay, what about Mary? Okay, what is the did what or what about Mary? What did Mary do? Mary, an enthusiastic baker. Well, that's not a base clause. That doesn't show what she did or what about her. That just describes her. It could be true that Mary was learning to make a new pie. That sounds better, doesn't it? What about her? She was learning. We have a helping verb in was, and we have an action verb in learning. And we're going to highlight from the comma after baker to the comma after pie. Now we have the subject, we have a verb. Let's give it the it could be true that test. It could be true that Mary was learning to make a new pie. Yeah, that sounds complete, doesn't it? Okay, well, what about this? Could it be Mary all by itself? It could be true that Mary. No, that's not a base clause yet. It could be true that an enthusiastic baker. No, that's not complete. It could be true that was learning to make a new pie. Is that a complete one? Nope. It could be true that banana and coconut cream. Nope. All right, so it does have a base clause. All right, it's the two parts that go together. Mary was learning to make a new pie.